Hello and a very warm welcome to ETC. So this episode is powered by Orca Security. Now, cloud has become the backbone of modern enterprises, but as organizations scale across multi-cloud environments, containers, and serverless workloads, the threat landscape is becoming far more complex. Traditional security approaches often struggle to keep up with the speed and scale of cloud infrastructure, which is why many security teams are now rethinking how cloud threat detection should actually work. So, to explore this, I'm joined in by Praveen Parihar, CISO at Razorpay, and Nagvendra Pratap Singh, Regional Sales Manager for India and SAARC at Orca Security. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us for this conversation.
Thank you.
Let's start with cloud security, how enterprises are scaling their cloud environments now. Talk to us about, and maybe Nagvendra, if you can come into the conversation, why are many security teams at this point in time rethinking their traditional approaches to threat detection?
No, absolutely, and I think that's a very great question. Right now, what the security teams are struggling with are basically how do we categorize, prioritize, and then remediate. Right, these three stages are what is bothering the security teams the most. And then there are internal teams, right? Security has different KPIs, development has different KPIs, infrastructure is going in a separate direction. So how do you marry this all together, come together, and make sure that the security is not compromised upon? I think that's the biggest challenge in the today's world.
All right, and on taking some cue from that, Praveen, if you can come into the conversation when we talk about cloud infrastructure today, it's highly dynamic. There are a lot of things. There are containers, serverless workloads, and probably multi-cloud setups that we are dealing with today. So, how do you see this complexity impacting threat detection?
The question is very timely, definitely. So depends on the organization if it has the multi-cloud environment or a single cloud. Irrespective of that, I guess the complexity has increased because the traditional solutions, if you look at it, whether it is CSPM or CNAP, these solutions have always focused on a static approach that, okay, we will scan your workloads, whether it is Kubernetes or any other serverless solution. You will scan it, you will give findings, and your security team will start chasing the engineers and infrastructure guys, right? And then out of, let's say, 100, you will have, let's say, 30 or 40% of them are false positive, right? Because they don't have context of the alerts which are being generated, right? So by the time of, let's say, the year ends, you will have thousands of issues which are basically there. So because of the lack of context and the availability of auto remediation, which is slightly difficult in this domain, that is where I guess the overall accumulation of alert happens. And that makes it very challenging for the company to actually remediate those stuff. So those which are missing context, and I would say that this is where the major flaw lies and the complexity increases.
Yeah, and talking about that, many security teams are also currently facing the alert fatigue. I mean, there's a lot of noise around them. And so, talk to us about how to differentiate between the role, to differentiate between the noise and the real alerts.
So I think, let's say, take an example of a traditional CSPM approach where you will have only a context of your cloud environment. For an example, maybe from an Orca, you would better attest that I'm going a little technical. So if, let's say, your bucket S3 bucket is, let's say, made public, and now, but you need to go a little deeper there, right? What sort of data is there on that? And is it really critical? Is it supposed to be public at all, right? Or that bucket is designed to be public, so it's not an issue at all, for an example, right? So that is what I'm talking about, the context part. The context part is something which I'm talking about. So you need the end-to-end value chain where you can validate those on the go, whether the exploitation is really possible on that or not. If that is there, then only that particular validation happens in a sandboxing environment. And once the validation done, so out of 100, I think 70% of the alerts will automatically be eradicated. So you'll have very less amount of true positive alerts which are going to be there, which can be immediately acted upon, all based on context.
Yeah, all right, Nagvendra, if you can come into the conversation as well. Like, I mean, how can organizations separate from, noise and the real alerts? How is that happening? Like, from your vantage point, because you've been dealing with a lot of organizations and a lot of alerts and the kind of security issues as well.
100%. So a lot of organizations who've been working with these so-called legacy solutions, they come to us with a problem that they seem to be, throwing a lot of alerts and taking pride in identifying them. That
Yeah.
okay, we've identified 100,000 problems that exist. Go fix them or play with them or do whatever,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Then it becomes the end user's problem. How do I segregate? How do I prioritize?
Yeah.
I mean, for a business as sensitive as a fintech or your company, for example, I need to know right now what is going to put me in the news tomorrow.
That's
Right?
true.
What is
Yeah.
going to break the business?
Yeah.
I need to have that kind of a sort of a partnership in terms of the platform that I'm using. It should be able to give
Mhm.
me actionable intelligence based upon my business environment.
Hmm.
Right now, I will just use another example of what you dwelled upon, Praveen. So suppose there is a vulnerability, which again vulnerabilities are slightly getting technical here based upon
Yeah.
static scores,
Yeah.
EPSS, CV, so
Yeah.
forth, right? Uh, but it's sitting on a VM which has not been on since Diwali 2021.
Yeah.
Right now, is that a priority?
Yeah.
Right? If it is not on, if it is not public, again, use case of being public or not is a separate thing altogether. But if it is something as simple as it is being on or not, helps me just deprioritize it to
Yeah.
a place that I don't have to look at it right now.
Yeah.
And prioritization is the key when you're trying to derive efficiency and ensuring that I resolve what matters the most in a timely fashion.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
wait till the breach is going to happen. And the second thing which is very important is, again, this context should be delivered in a clear, visible manner.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? It cannot be that I get a pretty graph and I'm sitting there putting my team's resources and times on trying to derive how do I triage this,
Yeah.
how do I
Yeah.
do with this pretty picture. It should be very clear and straightforward.
Hmm.
Okay, this is where you are, this is where it's going to lead,
Yeah.
this is what you need to address, and that's how you do it.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's all.
of course. Context seems to be very critical when it comes to cloud security. But Nagavendra, how important is also unified visibility when it comes to early threat detection?
Oh, absolutely. Working in silos is something that never works for anything.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, in your household,
Yeah.
for an
For
example,
any job, for any place.
for any job, any place, anything, working in silos is never effective.
Yeah.
Security is obviously, you cannot exist in silos. You cannot have teams not connected with each other, chasing different KPIs, not working together.
Hmm.
Those are the gaps that attackers or the bad people out there are
Yeah.
looking for,
Yeah.
to take advantage of that and get into your environment
Hmm.
and destroy it. Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
unified visibility becomes all the more important because various teams have the same playground, same console, same level of visibility into what is important right now, and how do I fix it.
Fix it.
Right?
Yeah.
This reduces the friction that tends to get generated if you have those silos tools, siloed
Hmm.
tools or
Hmm.
platforms
Hmm.
or various different telemetries. I get
Yeah.
it from here,
Yeah.
partly from there, then put it together. Right? Team has to work in the same direction in
Yeah.
that goal.
Yeah.
So that goalpost has to be the same for everybody.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
the
And
analogy I
perhaps
will
which
use
is
here.
very important for business continuity as well.
Exactly,
right?
exactly. I mean, look, if everybody's chasing different goalposts,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? If you are going left, right, and center in different directions, there is no business continuity.
Yeah.
Right? Everything has to come together, work together in synergy for the team to move forward, right? For the business to continue.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Praveen, talk to us about, as a CISO's perspective, like he was talking from a tech provider's perspective, but from your vantage point, what are those biggest blind spots that still exist when we talk about cloud threat detection?
I think I spoke about it. On the context part is
On
something
the
which
context,
is
yeah.
missing. I remember an example, probably that there were a few vendors, I won't name. So they have an option that, okay, we have an AI agent which will give you the path to resolve.
Okay.
And all they do in the name of AI, that, okay, I'll give you a recommendation, just the recommendation, right? So there's no actionable on a particular finding which comes from, let's say, from CSPM, right? So I think that that is a more worrisome
Yeah.
point where the actual actionable is missing. And I would say that the blind spot numbers are too much in terms of, for an example, let me take a technical example, that if, let's say, your team is not utilizing golden images, which are technically, let's say, set by security,
Yeah.
and and at the time comes that okay, the end of life comes for that,
Yeah.
and nobody actually prioritizes that.
Yeah.
So there are multiple actually blind spots. If you have so what we are doing at Razorpay, we're trying to bake in those golden images concept so that the engineers or infrastructure guys are able to only utilize them,
Yeah.
and make sure that you don't have a blind spot on that.
Yeah, gentlemen, it's time we sort of, like we started with the conversation, it's time we rethink about our traditional strategies. So, Nagvendra, what practical steps, now let's come to practicality more and on ground, what works and what steps should enterprise take if they perhaps want to, modernize their cloud threat detection at this point?
First of all, again, I'm a very big believer of the concept that the same size does not fit all, right?
Yeah.
We have to take every organization, every business's needs into account before you kind of, discuss
Yeah.
solutioning with them, or
Should be more personalized.
Exactly. It has
Yeah.
to be, no two companies are same, no
Yeah.
two sectors are the same.
Yeah.
It's all different.
Yeah.
So first of all, it is very important for us to work together with the organization to understand where exactly we can add value and work as a trusted advisor and partners, right?
Yeah.
Now, the approach that should be taken practically is, I would just again, classify it between three parts: identification, prioritization, and remediation.
Yeah.
Why is identification important? Obviously, if you don't know what's missing or what's the problem, how would you kind of know where you stand, right? What are the open gates, where the lock's missing?
Yeah.
That is very important.
Yeah.
I think there are a lot of vendors out there, legacy vendors, or those should not be named, basically just kind of stop here, right? They just identify, and then you are left dealing with whatever comes next.
Yeah.
Second thing that needs to be taken into context is basically the prioritization that we were talking about. What is going to put me in the news tomorrow? What is going to break my business? That sort of intelligence has to come from a platform that you're involved in, you're invested in, has to do the work for you, not the other way around.
Yeah.
Right? It shouldn't be an Excel CSV dump where I sit with my team and the team is spending hours and trying to, sort that out.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be that. Third, and the most important practical thing, is remediation. All of this is good, sounds great on paper, but how do I remediate it, right? Do I have to juggle multiple windows? Do I have to design separate workflows? Look, at the end of the day, you have enough workflows, right? How do you integrate into as seamlessly as possible into the existing ones, rather than having to create, from scratch is what makes all the sense. So again, just to kind of summarize it, identification, prioritization, and remediation, all within the existing scope and the sense of the business priorities, is what the most practical applicable solution to this is.
All right. So those were practical applications. And Praveen, looking ahead, as you were also talking about the AI example of an organization. So we know that organizations at this point in time are adopting more AI driven and cloud native applications. So as per you, looking ahead, how do you see cloud threat detection in this aspect evolving?
I think it has become even more easier now with the context being made available for your organization. Like for Razorpay, it's going to be different. For other organization, it's going to be different. That's where AI has made it little easier for us to give context about a particular infrastructure. Also, the remediation part, which probably from Orca he talked about, the remediation on the workload part, or if you need to, let's say, change the image to a golden image, that is little complex than just fixing your normal alert. So it's not an easy task where you can quickly go and replace those images, because there are a lot of applications running there. So you definitely need DevOps and engineering support there to bake in those things, because you can't just go and do the auto remediation and basically fix your issues, right? So here you need a more nuanced and strategic approach, because it's not an agent who will go and then replace your image, right? With where your entire infra and app is running, right? So it requires a different approach, but I think it's possible.
It's possible, On that note, this is how security teams are rethinking their cloud threat detection strategies. Well, thank you so much, gentlemen, for being a part of this conversation. And to viewers, stay tuned for many, many more such conversations only at ETCISO.